Hello, fire goddesses. Welcome to episode 72. I am really looking forward to introducing to you my next guest, Larissa Vassos. Larissa is a mindset and running coach from Ontario, Canada, and she's just really lovely. And you're going to quickly discover when you listen to her passion and her desire and her drive to help women running, specifically new runners, is really infectious. I had the best time chatting with her. I actually learned a lot too. I learned about my personal journey with running by having this conversation with Larissa, because I've heard everything under the sun when it comes to running, especially as a woman running, believe it or not. So without further ado, please welcome Larissa Vassos. Hello, fire goddesses. Welcome to the Reclaim Your Fire podcast. My name is Angela Noel, and I am a prosperity coach for the newly awakened or awake curious, driven overachiever, and overdoer. After running a successful acupuncture practice in Boston for 12 years, I decided to hang my hat by closing the practice and pursue what it is that I'm really meant to do in this world, and that is to serve humanity online on a global scale. Using my background in Chinese medicine, along with the brain science of habits, spirituality, and divine masculine and feminine energy balance, I am here to help you not just understand, but know how powerful you are, and that you are the person who is responsible for having the finances, inner peace, radiant health, and energy, aka the fire, in your life that you've always desired. My intention with this podcast is to serve humanity, no matter what gender you identify as, to help bring out the divine feminine goddess in each and every one of you. As you probably are already aware, the world is changing and is begging for the goddess to come out in each and every one of you. So, fire goddesses, stay tuned. Hello, fire goddesses. Welcome to the Reclaim Your Fire podcast. My name is Angela Noel, and I am the host of the podcast. And I'm really excited to introduce today's guest, Larissa Vassos. Hi, Larissa. How are you?
I'm so wonderful. Thank you so much for having me here, Angela. How are you?
Oh, I'm well, thank you. I'm so excited to talk to you and meet you. So to the goddesses listening, Larissa and I met on Instagram. So Instagram connections, good connections can happen. It is possible. So I'm really excited about this conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Larissa, I would love to know, we've chatted a little bit leading up to this conversation. I would love if you could just tell the goddesses listening a little bit more about yourself and how you help people.
Yes, of course. I am Larissa Vassos. I'm currently based in Ontario, Canada, and my current role and the way I help people these days, I'm a running and mindset coach. So what this means is I help new runners, more specifically female new runners, find themselves and create a new level of mental and physical strength through running and personal development, with the hopes that I can help to guide them and empower them to reach their goals and push their limits as to what they feel is possible for themselves. And I've been doing this for just this year, so I'm brand new to it, but my former role was in healthcare. I was a physical therapist, and I worked in that sector for 7 years. And it was through my experiences in that area that it kind of pushed me towards a more holistic approach to health and wellness, as well as personal development.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, Larissa, that sounds amazing and so needed. And I'm just curious to know what specifically got you into coaching and running in particular. I would love to hear more about that.
Absolutely. So I'll start with the running portion of your question just because it's a bit easier. I actually started running way back in 2013 as I was going through my master's to become a physical therapist. And I started to manage stress, anxiety, and depression because the master's program was incredibly intense. So it was in that 2-year period from 2012 to 2014 that I actually found my passion for long distance running. And it's been an ongoing journey since then. I can't say I've always loved it, but and I have taken many breaks over time, but since March of 2020, I've been consistently running and developed myself to a point where now it's become who I am. And I really don't think I could ever be without it. And it's through that passion and that sort of identity as a runner that I found my calling to share this with others. And you said, sorry, the coaching. Oh yeah, that's right. Coaching.
Yeah. And how it specifically got you to bring those two together. That's so beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. The coaching was an idea that was planted in my head also in 2020 in April. So it was the start of COVID and all this, was happening. And a friend of mine casually dropped a comment, "Oh, you'd make a really good coach." And at the time, I remember laughing and saying, "Funny." Moved on. It didn't really stick in my head, but as COVID, became a thing and working in healthcare in COVID became a thing, I started to realize that I wanted to do not only like something outside of healthcare, but I wanted to have my own business that I could use as a vessel to help people in a way that was meaningful to me, but also meaningful to them. And so coaching was an intuitive nudge from a friend a year and a half ago that kind of stuck in my brain as a little bit of a seed, and it grew and it grew and it grew until finally I couldn't ignore it anymore. And so I took the leap.
I just love that we talked offline before we had this conversation today, and we're talking about people leaving jobs, and how I'm just, whenever somebody tells me they're leaving their job or they're about to leave a job, I always congratulate them. I just think that's the most amazing thing. And what I gleaned from what you just said, Larissa, is that your friend planted that seed. It kind of grew and grew and grew and became this thing. And now you're following your passion, which is so exciting.
Indeed. It's not official yet, but in 2 weeks and 2 days, I will be leaving my current position as a physical therapist and transitioning full-time into coaching. And like you said, it is my passion, and I truly believe it's my calling, and my way to serve people and give back to others is to help them find their own joys and their own love of running and physical fitness, but also develop things like, self-love, self-confidence, strength, and really just that sense of invincibility that comes when you accomplish things that you really never thought you could do. It's incredibly empowering. And running was the natural step for me. Not that I'm an expert by any means, but in March of 2020, when I started taking this more seriously, I could run 2.5 kilometers. So let's say like a mile and a half. I had taken a massive break from running, kind of fell out of love with it for a while. And I said, okay, you know what? COVID hit, let's do this. I could run 1.5 miles.
Mm-hmm.
And now a year and a half later, I average anywhere from 50 to 60 kilometers a week, which is, I don't know, 30 miles, I want to say.
Yeah,
so
30.
My math is not great.
30, 35.
So, yeah, something like that. And so it's just this sense of, it hasn't been an overnight success story or anything like that. But if I can do it, I want other people to feel what it feels like when they know that they can do it too.
And you had mentioned that you work primarily with new runners. Is that right?
Yeah.
So when somebody finds you and wants to work with you, are they already running, or are they like, what is usually their status as far as running? Have they ever run before? Have they started?
That's a great question. It is a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Most of my clients are new in the sense that they've either never done it and they have the idea, but they've never like physically put that idea into motion, or they've started, let's say they've started to train for their first 10K or their first half marathon, but they've been stopped at some point. Either they were injured, they got tired. Like there's a thing called training fatigue where you just basically become tired of training, or something else has come up in their life and they've had to stop or take a break, and they're now returning to running after that hiatus. So I mean, new as in like, yes, either they haven't done it before, or maybe they've tried it, but it hasn't been successful for some reason. And my goal is to help them overcome whatever challenge as a new runner that they have faced and get back into it.
That's really cool. I feel like I would have been a perfect client for you when I ran my marathon, my very first marathon a long time ago. But yeah, that's so valuable. I feel like the service that you offer is so valuable, because oftentimes I feel like with running, I know when I started running, it was just like, oh, I need to start exercising, and I didn't have the money to go to the gym or anything. So I just started running outside, and I remember, the pains associated with not really knowing what I was doing, and to have a coach, just to have a coach to be available to go through that process and do it correctly. Plus you have the physical therapy background. So I would imagine all the anatomy and the physiology.
I definitely know the most common running injuries, either from my own experience, because I did make many mistakes when I was starting out as well, but also from patients of mine that I've treated over the years. I know what to look for. I know when to stop. I know when to rest and when to maybe push a little bit more. But the other thing that I think is just as important as the physical side of the running game is the mental side of the running game.
Yeah.
And my own development through, mental health challenges I faced in my own life, but also working towards my mindset and mental resilience, the things that I've done in my own life. I've seen the power that those shifts can create. I want to bring that into the running world for my clients as well. So it's mental training and physical training together.
So powerful. And I'm so glad that we segued into this piece, because this is really what the Reclaim Your Fire podcast is all about, is training the brain and developing brain habits to get through hurdles and to get through obstacles. So as far as, and I've been a runner on and off, and I'm just thinking about some of the hurdles that I've gone through, and what I've come to discover, and this is just with my personal experience, is that when the mind starts to get in the way, like that can make or break a run. So I'm just curious to know, when you have those clients that are like, either I'm not a runner or I'm not good enough, right? Those are such common objections for all areas of our life. I'm not good enough. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm tired. My knees hurt, so with that in mind, what is your process of working with these clients of yours to get through those challenges?
I think that there are a lot of different barriers and a lot of different challenges that each person will face, because running is very individual. But at the end of the day, anyone can be a runner. And anyone who runs, whether it be for, half a mile or 50 miles, you're a runner. And it's about embodying the habits and the traits of the person or the thing you wish to become. So as a new runner or a returning runner, you might not feel like a runner on day one, but whether or not you feel like one, you are. And it's about developing those mind habits as well as like the physical actions you take on a daily basis to move you closer and closer towards that new identity. And it's about adopting that identity. And that's what's really going to give you that outward sort of confidence and strength. But even if you don't feel it at the beginning, it's the shifts in your actions and your mindset that will get you there. So I'd say that's probably the most common starting point for most of my clients.
And how do you, other than the fact, that we are built, when you look at our anatomies, we're built to move and run and do these actions. But when you work with a client, how do you help them with their identity of going from a non-runner to a runner, for example?
Right. So one thing I would say to, let's say, a brand new client who was on the journey of becoming a runner. One thing that I've often said, like on a day-to-day basis, every action you take is a vote for the new identity or the new habit that you're trying to form. So something as simple as, for example, hitting the snooze button or not hitting the snooze button, or lacing up your shoes or putting on your slippers, little actions you take every day. If you think of those as a vote for, like, yes, voting new habit, new identity, which would be a runner, or no, voting old habit, old identity, non-runner. If you break it down into those literally micro actions you take in a day, those add up over time. So my question then that I ask my clients is, who or what type of person do you need to become to be a runner? And are you doing the actions or the things that that type of person would do? Mm-hmm. So every day ask yourself, is this what a runner would do? Is this what a healthy person would do? Is this what a committed person would do? And in that question, oftentimes your answer is quite obvious. Not always, but often. And that's a hack that I've recommended often. And I do that for myself as well on those days when I struggle, because I'm a human and I do.
Yeah. And, I love that, because that basically is giving the power to your client. That's giving the power to your, to the person who wants to develop these new habits, instead of saying, you should do that, right? Instead of being you should do this, you should do that. The choice is up to them. And identity is destiny. Like, I'm all about identity, changes in identity. And what most people don't realize is that we're so powerful. It's something that I've been really diving deep into, and how I work with clients is, you want something, everything is choice, and your life is a direct reflection of everything, that all the decisions that you've made, all of your habits, all the choices you've made. Are you being responsible? It's not something that's part of our normal culture, although my goal is to make that a normal thing in our culture, is to change that paradigm, because we can be, do, and have anything we want in our life if we decide that for ourselves. So I really love that approach. And I think that's a really powerful way of working with clients, because especially, anybody, but athletes, and I'm not as familiar with coaching athletes, maybe you are, but is mindset work, has it classically been included in working with athletes?
So I'm going to go ahead and say no. I think that the more recent approach has been to incorporate mindset in it. Within the last maybe 3 to 5 years, there's been so much research done in the sports psychology world that has come to show that, yes, your psychology plays a massive part, but traditionally speaking, no, it wasn't included. It was more the physical training and not so much the mental and the mindset. That being said, there has been lots of research done around things like visualization with athletes. So, visualizing yourself performing your sport, whether it be basketball, soccer, football, running, whatever it is you do, but visualizing your performance, the beginning of the performance, what it feels like in the moment, how you're going to feel afterwards, breaking that down and visualizing it in as much detail as you can is just as effective as actually doing the thing physically, which is really interesting. So in the manifestation sort of mindset world, visualization is everything. And that power is actually completely transferable to things like running and physical activity, which for some people might be surprising, but actually, for me, it's like a superpower.
Yeah, we're so powerful. And I just, I love your approach, Larissa, to working with people because, running a lot of times has negative connotations, right? Like running is hard, and running is hard on your joints and hard on your body. And before we segue, I would love for you to just address, like, when people say running is hard or running is hard on your joints, or are there any myth busters that you have around what we typically associate running?
Absolutely.
With running.
I mean, I can talk about this all day, but I won't. Don't worry. Yeah, there's heaps of, heaps of running falsehoods or myths that exist, and I fell for them when I was not a runner, when I didn't believe that running was a powerful tool to, personal development and self-worth and all this. I used to think running would give you arthritis because that's what I was told. And I believed it. I said, okay, anyone who runs, they're ridiculous. They're going to have arthritis in their knees, their hips, their ankles. Why would you ever do that? I believed this.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't. Newsflash. Running does not directly correlate with arthritis. In fact, there's either it either has no impact or it actually slightly lessens your risk of developing arthritis, because osteoarthritis is something with wear and tear over time. If you're running with, let's say, terrible form, wrong shoes, or really old shoes on concrete surfaces for your entire running career, sure, you might have a higher chance of developing osteoarthritis. And in that case, the myth could be true for you. But if you employ things like strength training, cross training, proper footwear, new surfaces, proper form, all of these things will work in your favor. You're not going to develop arthritis from running. You might develop it for some other reason, but it's not going to be because you ran or were a runner. So that's probably the biggest myth that I just want to dispel for everyone.
Yeah. And also ACL injuries, women shouldn't be runners because of the shape of our hips. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Sure do. I actually just put a post up on this. So females in particular are quads dominant. So what that means is the quad muscle at the front of your leg is 4 times stronger than your glutes and hamstrings at the back of your leg. And that's just how we are. And like anatomically speaking, men can be quads dominant, but it's less common. So females in particular, you just said something like females shouldn't be runners. That's not true at all. Females should and most definitely can be runners. You just need to approach it with your anatomical sort of makeup in mind. And what I mean by this is you have to work to strengthen your glutes and your hamstrings more than a man would, because theirs are naturally stronger. But women can do cross training and strength training to compensate for their weaker glutes and hamstrings, to create the balance front to back that's going to prevent you from injuring, let's say, your ACL, or rupturing your quad, or irritating your IT band, or any of the other host of things that can happen. But women can and should run. You just have to be mindful of your anatomy and target the muscle groups that you need to target to counteract that quads dominant.
So many people are going to listen to this and be relieved, I think, because I mean, even in my industry, in the acupuncture industry, I've had colleagues who are treating me tell me, yeah, you might want to do yoga instead of running. It's not good for you. And only recently have I really started to call BS on that. But I love your approach, Larissa. And I think I did see a post. You had your mini bands on, right? And
Yeah.
you were strengthening your hamstrings.
Yeah. In my living room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so powerful. Thank you for just illuminating. You also help me too, because it's definitely something that I've struggled with my share of running related injuries and thought that I'm not really supposed to be a runner because of the shape of my hips or whatever other BS that they tell women these days, right?
There's lots of that.
Yeah. That would be a separate episode altogether.
Yeah.
100 episodes. But I would love if we could just transition and talk a little bit about your journey with being a healthcare practitioner, being in the system, because I know, you're about ready to leave, and they know you're leaving, right?
Yeah, they do.
They do know you're leaving. Okay. I was gonna say we could put this out after October.
No, it's okay.
So yeah, and I know you were mentioning just the limitations associated with being in clinic and treating patients and being in the system. And especially I feel like your story is going to resonate with so many healthcare practitioners out there who are starting to wonder, like, do I want to do this? Do I want to tolerate this new world and new set of rules? And I would love for you to just chat about how this new business that you're creating, this new identity of a business owner and helping people this way, how that's different from how you were helping people in the clinic. And I know you mentioned something earlier, maybe it was offline, about just implying satisfaction, like you're really living what your dharma, you're living what you're here to be, what you're supposed to be doing on this planet. So hopefully that made sense. I fumbled a little bit with the wording, but I would love if you could speak to that.
Yeah, of course. I most definitely can. And I did mention to you, I believe, before we started, kind of my journey in physical therapy and the pros and cons, in my opinion, of my career choice. But I'll take you back 7 years to my master's program, because in Canada, physical therapy is a 2-year master's that you complete after a 4-year undergrad. So I went straight from high school to my 4 years of undergrad university, and right from there to my 2 years of my master's program for physical therapy. So I did this mostly because in my mind, that was what was expected of me, and that was what my parents wanted. That was kind of the societal pressure at the time. Being an entrepreneur was never given to me as an option. Like, I remember walking into what were they called? I think they were guidance counselors in high school and talking about my career choices. And entrepreneur was not on the list. I didn't even know it was a thing.
Yeah.
So, I went through all of the hoops of all of the papers and the schooling that I thought I needed to become this professional. And I walked into my physical therapy career at the age of 23. I was the youngest physical therapist in Canada for a year. Fun fact. I know it was a bit of a shock, but I very quickly realized, in fact, I knew when I was in the master's program that I was living, I didn't know the words at the time, but I could feel it wasn't right. In today's language, I would say I was living out of alignment, but I was too young and really too naive to know that there was another way for me. I just assumed it was something I had to do. So I pushed through, I graduated, and I walked into my profession at the age of 23. And over the last 7 years, I've worked in different countries. I've worked in different clinical settings, but the predominant theme that I've seen over and over and over again is that people are more than just an illness or an injury in front of me. And physical therapy I know, I can see you doing your little happy dance over there. In physical therapy in particular, it is very physical. It's the body or the illness. It's not the person as a whole. And I often felt pigeonholed. In fact, I still do. That's one of the reasons why I'm finally deciding to move on and live in alignment, because I felt pigeonholed into this box. And I call it the physical therapy box, of looking at everything through the physical therapy lens. Physical problems are not just physical. They manifest into your mind. They manifest into your emotions. They manifest into the way you think about yourself and you relate to others, and vice versa. Mental problems, and I put mental like in quotation marks, but problems with your mindset and your let's say like depression, anxiety, mental health, those can manifest as physical problems in your body. But working in the healthcare system, you're not really given that sort of freedom or that leeway to treat the person as a whole. Mm-hmm. And over time, I often felt like I wasn't helping people the way I wanted to help. I was doing so little for them when I could do so much more, but I couldn't, because of either time constraints, resources, college rules. Like there's so many things that kind of stopped me from doing what I really wanted to do for the person in front of me. And it was really hard. It still is hard. That feeling of like, you're not impacting the soul in front of you in the way that you want to. And so my journey out of that has been, first of all, reclaiming my freedom and my views of what I feel is meaningful and contributing to another person's life. It's not just their physical body. I want to be able to help from a mental and a spiritual and a physical point of view to create sort of a balanced life. And I believe in doing that, you focus more on the prevention of the illness or injury and less on treating it once it's actually popped up. Yeah. And I think that for me has been the biggest shift.
Wow. I hear this and feel this so hard. And I really feel your passion in your heart, Larissa. Like, I know that you are 100%, if not 1000% in what you're doing. And I see that, and I see a future that's so bright for you. And I'm so happy that you're leaving your job.
Thank you. Me too.
Yeah. We are not our symptoms. We are not our illnesses. And I hope that I will be on this planet to be able to see the day when medicine actually, I feel as an acupuncturist, I was able to contribute to that somewhat, because that's what we learn about the mind. We learn, it's not just about treating physical symptoms, but even as an acupuncturist, just treating acupuncture alone, I felt I can relate, just feeling limited, because so much of our physical ailments come from the mind. Disease comes from the mind, and it's a result of not being at ease, right? Up here.
Yeah.
And but I think with everything that happened in 2020, I think there's a lot of miracles that are unraveling. People like you, and like I closed my practice last year. I was like, I'm done. I'm so glad I did, because of this, what healthcare practitioners are being required. It's just crazy. And, just seeing more and more people step into alignment, step into their dharma, and actually be able to help people, like you said, to be able to help people as they are.
Yeah.
Instead of just being like, oh yeah, do these exercises, right? Like, well, what's going on here? What's going on in your mind? How did you feel when you woke up today? All the things that people are going through so much, and just to be able to have that journey, be part of that journey with them, is so important.
And even if I can just add on to that a little bit, but there's so much focus on pain, but pain is such a complex phenomenon, and we don't even fully understand pain. But physical pain causes mental pain, and mental pain causes physical pain, and they're so closely intertwined that you're kind of doing, if you're only treating one and not the other, you're doing a massive disservice to the person in front of you. The thoughts and the feelings and the emotions of your patients or your clients, or whatever name you want to give them, they're just as important, if not more important, than the thing they're presenting with to you. And I do think it's powerful to have that recognition of the person and all of the moving parts, kind of like a synopsis of them, instead of that small piece.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Their pain is just it's a small piece of who they are. And it's just, and pain is a manifestation of any kind of pain, mental pain, emotional pain, physical pain, is just a sign that, an invitation for us to go deeper and, what is actually causing this pain? Because how many times, pain patients for me, I've seen amazing cases, and then I've had those cases where it's just like, they don't go away.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't help you until you, decide to do X, Y, and Z, which most of the time, because of the way so many people are brought up. What? Look at my mind. What do you mean? Nothing's wrong with my mind. I'm fine.
Yeah, totally.
And those become really frustrating cases. So what an amazing conversation. Thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you. This has been good.
And powerful. I'm so happy for you. And so as far as how you work with people, are you doing one-on-one? Are you doing group? Are you doing a little bit of everything? How are you helping people right now?
That's a great question. Right now, I am doing one-to-one coaching. My vision involves expanding to group coaching to create a community of women so that in addition to my support, they also have one another. And then from there, potentially, I would ideally like to target healthcare professionals. But, not target, but incorporate what I do to serve that population, because I know what's missing, and I believe that I could kind of be a bridge in that world. So yes, currently one-to-one, with the vision of expanding into group coaching in the near future.
Exciting. And I'll link all of your information up in the show notes.
Yeah.
For anybody that wants to know right now how to find you, what is the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, it's Instagram for sure. I do hang out on Facebook, but less. So Instagram would just be at Larissa Vassos, and that'll take you straight to my coaching page. There's heaps of free resources on there. I do like a reel or a live every day, with mostly running related content and mindset and personal development as well.
And it is an amazing Instagram account. Like that's how we found each other. And I love how you're showing up. So Larissa, thank you so much for offering your time, offering your heart and your passion today on the podcast.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me, Angela. It has been a blast.
Yes, I agree. And until next time, goddesses, be radiant, be powerfully alive, and know that you can always reclaim your fire at any time. Take care. Thank you so much for listening to the Reclaim Your Fire podcast. If you have found value in this podcast, please share this podcast with those you care about. As you probably already know, in order for the world to change, we need to change. So spread the word by sharing this podcast or by leaving a review in iTunes. Until next time, Fire Goddess, be radiant, be fiery, and be powerfully authentic. Take care.